Let's get back to Peter Malinauskas now in South Australia. Sorry, we lost you there for a moment, but I was asking you about, the Yes campaign, what advice you would give. You said you were reluctant to give that advice, but in essence, I'm wondering what is really motivating the general public. Why do you think people do support, more broadly, the polls show it, a Yes case?
Well, I think Australians are well familiar with the degree of disadvantage that is being lived out every day by our Indigenous communities. It's real, and it's a big differential between the standard of living for non-Indigenous Australians and Indigenous Australians, and people want to see something done about it. And we've tried a lot of things up until this point, and we've never truly been able to land policies that close that gap. Now, I think the voice to Parliament doesn't fix all of that, but it can contribute to a renewed effort to actually achieve some better policy outcomes. And I think it's also the fact, Laura, that given the history of failure, trying something new is something that the electorate supports. In respect to the tone of the debate around the referendum, I've got a relatively strong view that people who are supporters of the voice, like myself, shouldn't run down a path that sees this sort of characterising anyone who would vote against the voice as somehow being racist. If you're opposed to the voice, I don't somehow believe that automatically qualifies you as being a racist. I think that the best way to conduct this debate nationally is in a civil, considered way, which I think has largely been the case up until this point, and that the voice stands on the value of its own merits. This is an argument, to the extent it is an argument, it can be won on the basis of what it is genuinely trying to do and what it doesn't take away from anybody else.
Let's ask you about the New South Wales election now. Wall-to-wall Labor, state governments and federal government. Do you have advice to Chris Minns this morning, the new Premier?
Well, Chris is a mate, and I think Chris has got all of the requisite qualities that a leader requires, and I think he'll do a great job. I just might add, I thought Dom Perrottet's concession speech on Saturday night was a really classy one, and I think he deserves a great degree of credit for that. Look, the opportunity of having Labor leaders across mainland Australia is a big one. I don't think it means that every problem gets fixed instantly, and I don't think it means there's not a diversity of opinion. Different leaders have different approaches, and different states have different interests. But we arrive at challenges with a common set of values, and I hope that is meaningful, and I hope it counts for something as we try to contemplate the big challenges that the country's got before it.
Yeah, it does have big challenges. What have you learned, not even, or what are you, a year in, about, keeping promises and how hard it is to match, reality with hope? I ask you in the context of, because I know a big part of your election campaign was about getting down ambulance ramping. Have you learned that is harder to solve than you thought in opposition? No,
I knew it would be hard. I knew it was going to take a lot of resources, and we've been throwing all of that at the health system and more, and our state budget is evidence of that. But what has certainly become increasingly apparent to anyone who understands this area of policy around the country is that state governments can't do it alone. And that's not in respect to a dollars question, but in respect to the fact that state governments have got their hand tied behind their back when it comes to the policy levers that require to be pulled to address the performance of public hospital system. And what I'm talking about specifically, Laura, is our primary health system, or Medicare. Bulk billing rates in South Australia, as is the case around the nation, are collapsing. They are cratering before our eyes. And if Australians can't get in to see a GP, then they get sicker. And when they get sicker, they end up in hospital. And it's putting an extraordinary burden on the hospital system. So we've got to be able to have engagement between states and the Commonwealth if we're going to address problems such as these.
OK, well, lovely to talk to you once again. We'll see you soon at this rate.
Thanks.